Afternoon everyone, just a continuation of the video I did last Friday and put up this week of the hardening and tempering of the little neckers and the carving knife. I've started with the carving knife. I've got a handle blank made up for it and I'm just going to be doing scales for the neckers, so I'll bring you down onto the workbench and show you what I've done so far. Okay, so there's the necker blank there. I've already marked up and cut out roughly two of the scales and got the second one here to do now. This is ebony, and I thought I would use some ebony to do this with because I think it goes well with the colour of the blanks. I'm not going to lose much of that colour off of there. So that's two of the scales sets, and here is the carving knife. I've let it into the inside of each face by about, well, it's 2mm thick, so I've let it in by 1mm. Next job is to drill the holes and pin it, and then I can pin the scales together so that I can work on them a little bit, doing some rough shaping and thickness in, and then I shall sharpen up the blade at the same time as I do the others. So I do it in sort of so I drill all the holes in the scales at the same time as well, and then I can move through each cycle in a line. So I'll get back to you in a bit when I've got some bit to show you. I like to do all this sort of stuff by hand because I've got a reciprocating saw thing, the jigsaw cutter thing. It's an electric version of this really, but I'm used to working so that you work the saw rather than the work, if that makes any sense. Basically, I've done it so long this way I can't do it any other way, and it doesn't really take a lot of time, and I find it easier to follow the line by hand anyway. Go. Just a bit of trimming up to do in the area up by the hilt, and then I should start shaping them on the belt sander, which I do use. go, that's the front end's trimmed down. I don't think I'm going to chamfer them. I might chamfer them actually, but just a tiny bit before I go on to the next move. As you can see, I've got the knife blank clamped down onto a piece of wood with which is part of the filing jig I use. Zoom out a little bit more. No, that's it. It's a bit cramped in this workshop, but basically it's a piece of 3x3 with a bed at one end screwed on, and then a board at the other end upright, which the file which is there is dubly clipped onto a piece of, originally it was metre long iron from B&Q, which I made one of the knives from. I think it's the one that didn't work. It all buckled and didn't work, but that's the same pattern as I used for the Damascus steel knife. And using a bit of trigonometry, a bit of Pythagoras, I was able to get an angle of, I think it's a 15-degree angle, using the old SOHCAHTOA thing, sine, cosine and tangent, to be able to get the angle and the height of the board at this end. So I used this jig. I've copied it off of, well, actually Sandy had something similar, and a number of other people had something similar, and I just knocked this up as something similar. So I'll now finish off filing the bevels. That's a fine hand file in there, and then I should go over to the whetstones, the diamond whetstones, to finish it. And then I use a combination of like a steel for sharpening knives, and then a piece of leather glued to a board. So I'll get around the camera in a second and show you just a little bit of filing, and then we'll see what happens after that. This clamp here is set up so that it's at the end of the bevel, rubs against the iron, so it can't go any further than that. And that gives you a nice gradual flare into the bevel. So basically all it is just going along. I'm going to fine tune it a little bit because I'm just missing the end of the bevel, so I'm just going to move that just slightly, a little bit at a time. Make sure I get all the way into the corner but no further. It looks neater. It looks neater if you can actually get that into the right spot. It's all gone nice and bright now, so I'm going to turn it over and take it down on the other side and gradually bring it down to a fine point. Just before it comes to the fine point, I shall switch over to the diamond stones. So I'll show you what happens in the next stage. So I've sharpened up the blades through the diamond stones and then onto the steel, and I'm just giving a bit of a wipe over on the leather strop. And then I'll give them the paper cut test in a minute. Don't use any compound on this. mostly because I don't have any, but it seems to work quite well without any stropping compound on it. I've yet to find any, so I might ask someone when I see their videos next where they're using some, and ask them where they got it from. Wow. It's trimming up a few hairs. This one I'll do on there because it's quite, the pins are quite tight in it, but I've done some stropping on it. And I think it looks rather neat with the ebony scales against the very dark blue, almost black of the sides of the blade, and the brightness of the bevel. So once I've done them all, or as I do them all now, I'm going to glue the scales on this one tonight, and then sharpen up and fit the scales to the others as they go, and then I'll present you with a picture of them all once they're done. Yep, that's taking the hairs off as well. The thing is that as you use it and work with it, you can keep going away at the edge to get it more and more sharp as you go. You don't have to do it all in one hit. Just build it up as you go. It really is quite an edge on it already. Certainly sharp enough now to stick the scales on and move on to the working on the edge more as you progress through the making of them. Because I've got to tape it up now and make sure that all the protect the blade whilst I take all the excess off and file it down flush to the spine. Little tang. So I'll just do a quick paper cut test for you in front of the camera, and then I shall go and glue these scales on and onto the carving knife as well. There's little snags in it, but they'll polish out. It's not bad considering it's just come straight off the sharpening. It's upside down the screen, so I have to see the way I'm doing it. Right, so let's have a look at the other one. There we go, it's all in the picture. I'll probably get done now for littering in the garden. I think that's enough of that. I'll be slicing all day. So this is the next day now, and the two knives that I glued up last night, I used Araldite. I cleaned off the spine with the tang with nail polish remover to degrease it, and the and Araldite on the all over the place on it. I see a lot of people use quite a bit more glue than they really need, and there's a lot of squeeze out. Even with these two here, there's a lot of squeeze out, and I hardly used any glue at all on them. Just about each one I think was round about a pea size of it, the glue and the hardener, and there still was a lot of squeeze out. There still is a lot of ooze, but that will all clean up with a chisel actually. It's in there. It's a lot easier actually than wiping the stuff off with Araldite. So the next, actually that's quite light really. The next one, I've put the scales, fitted the scales, and now I'm going to put it on the jig and file up the bevels, and then work down and sharpen it up, and then glue the scales on. And these two, I'm going to, certainly that one I'm going to trim flush on the belt sander and scrapers and sandpaper. And this one I'm going to play around with the carving. I'm going to sort of carve a not exactly what shape you'd call it really, but sort of flare it down at both ends so it bulges in the middle, and should give you a lot of control. Make it roundish, so it gives you a lot of control for carving. I'm also in two minds about whether to really point the tip up, because I think that will be quite a weak area and it'll probably snap anyway, so because it's so fine, so I'll probably leave it like that. But over time, as I become more adept at carving, I shall probably know exactly what to do with it, and I can either adapt this one or just make another one. So that's a good thing about doing this, is that it doesn't cost too much in materials compared to some things, but once you sort of know what you want, it's easier to achieve it after practice. I know it's probably easier just to go out and pay the 35 quid for one that someone's already made and had all the developing of, but it's sometimes just better to do something for yourself. So I'll let you know what happens next, and we'll carry on. I did actually think that I'd recorded the start of making these knives. I thought I'd filmed me using the bench grinder to rough them out from the, shape them up from the template, but that was the previous set that made from just the cheapo mild steel from B&Q. As you can see, the patina on the blade is partly due to the burning from where it was so hot, but I've developed the blade so that it's not quite so flat in that area. It's more curved, so I think that it feels like it would be better for carving than this one, which was just a bit too flat, I think. So that's just a little development on the original idea. I quite like the shape of them. They're nice little, fit in your hand nicely, not too small, you can get a good purchase, and they're ideal for little small jobs. Right, I've brought the scales back flush on this necker. A little bit of work maybe to do on it, but I'll just give it a bit of a look at over the next few days whilst I shape all the others. And this carving knife, I've seen similar handles to this on them, almost like a chisel handle, and over time I shall perfect the shape of it or take it off and do something else, as the case may be, but it's all in development stages. Feel nice in the hand. It's nice and big, so you can move it around a bit. Just pull cuts, so that you've got a nice chunk to get a hold of. So I'm going to look forward to having a carve with that. And look at the crook knife next, after I've finished these neckers.